You're listening to Head Voice, bringing you inside the minds of the best in contemporary a cappella. I'm Evan.
And I'm Kayla. And this week we had Matt Goldstein on. Matt recently graduated from Vassar College, where he studied music and drama. Matt was in the Vassar Devils and was an arranger and music director. The Devils went to ICCA finals in 2015 and won Boston Sings in 2016. During this episode, we talked about arranging and music directing.
We were really lucky to go very in-depth with Matt about these topics, and we even were able to dissect one of the arrangements off of the Devils' new album Coming Alive, which was Runnin, and Matt was nice enough to provide us with a partial sheet music for that arrangement, so that'll be listed in the show notes. It was very nice of him to provide this, and so I'd kindly ask, if you're listening, please just use that sheet music for your own educational development. As always, show notes can be found on SoundCloud by clicking Show More, and on the podcast app by clicking the album art. There's a lot to get into with this episode, so without any further ado, this week's episode of Head Voice.
Hi everyone, we're here with Matt Goldstein from the Vassar Devils, and we're super excited to have him here. I'm gonna just turn it right over to you, Matt, and just ask, so you did a lot of arranging for the Vassar Devils, most of the arranging for the Devils while you were in the group, and that was your primary role, I want to say. So how did you get into arranging in the first place prior to the Devils?
That's a good question. First of all, thank you guys so much for having me. This is such a cool opportunity. I've been kind of a nerd and just like stalking these podcasts, and like it's really fun. And I just listened to Hannah's earlier today, actually, which is cool. Hannah was, for those of you who don't know, Hannah was the assistant music director and did a bunch of the arranging stuff for the Devils while I was in the group. So it was fun getting to hear her talk about all this stuff, and then I'm going to come in and basically just like repeat what she said, but in different words. But yeah, how did I get into arranging? So when I was a sophomore in high school, I don't even remember really why, but I got in my head, I was like, I need to start an a cappella group. It was probably largely inspired by like the Warblers on Glee, because I was like, this is so cool. Like everyone in high school was really into that. And so I started a group with my best friend Josh, and it didn't really even occur to me that like it was a possibility to like get other people's arrangements, because I didn't really have money. I wasn't going to like buy other people's arrangements because I am cheap. So I was like, I'll just do it myself. And I never really had arranged anything before. So I started out like with super like verging on illegal transcriptions of songs. So the very first, like we did Teenage Dream, and I literally just like listened to and it was in an SATB group. So I listened to the Warblers cover, and I just like basically modulated it into a key that worked for SATB, and like went line by line, just listening really hard with my like headphones on, and just tracing each line and just basically writing it down on the paper. And then we did like a cover of a song from Spring Awakening, where again I literally just like took the like musical theater like voicing, and like then I took the guitar part and just like put the guitar into voices. It was all very transcriptive, just like tracing line by line and figuring out what is the function of this line, how is it all coming together, this cool effect is happening, how did that happen? And honestly, that's still one of my favorite things to do, is to just like score study. I nerd out all the time when like one of my friends from another group will do a cool arrangement. I'll be like, hey, like, can you send me the sheet music of that? Like, I'd love to check it out, because it's really cool just to see how these moments are made, and to demystify like this chord gives me this feeling, this moment is so cool. But it's just, it's just notes on a page. Like, how is it happening?
Right.
So I started off kind of just with that, with really transcriptive stuff. And then once I got a basic understanding of how, like, like the bass line generally following the tonic here, the pads and the rhythms functioning in this way, clicking together, whatever, cascades, all the like a cappella gimmicks. Then I started to branch off a little bit more. And so my junior year, I started to do arrangements that weren't as transcriptive and kind of had their own ideas into them. And then got to the point when I got to college where I was barely looking at the original music at all, and just kind of like taking the melody and structure of the song and like spinning something bizarre out of it. But yeah, I started very simply.
So Hannah, when she was on, was kind of mentioning how the Devils really transformed when you got into the group, and so not trying to butter your bread too much, but you obviously did a lot to kind of change the face of the group, and you put the group on the map. So can you kind of talk about how you grew in the group with Hannah, with all those singers that you're around, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know, looking back on it all, it's like such a blur. It's so crazy to retrospect on. But when I got in the group, I had a really difficult time choosing like a school to begin with. I was very indecisive. Still am very indecisive. And so when I got into Devils, I was just kind of in a place in my mind where I was like, is this the right school for me? Is this the right place for me? Is this the right group for me? And the group did, as Hannah was saying, the group did lots of like jazz standards and kind of like laid back, groovy songs. And they were still known for being musically rich and complex and having really cool arrangements. But we didn't really do any modern stuff. There was literally like no belting. It was all just like really breathy head voice, and I was like, this is fun. but I was in a place where I was like, this isn't really fulfilling. I like want something at this school that will be a community that I want to be like feel close with, because we were also like, we were friends, but we weren't like best of friends. We could like be hanging out in rehearsal, but that was mostly it. And so I was like, I want a community of people that like are super, super close, that I can feel like my home, and I want to make music that I'm just like, this is music that is so exciting to me, because I also wasn't super into the choir scene at Vassar. So I kind of just like had this like burning in the pit of my stomach. I was like, I just really want to make really cool music that, and even less for, I mean, it sounds weird, but like some people go in and they're like, oh, like I want to make music that like will change the acapella scene and like will like win ICCA finals and that will like win all these awards. And I was just like, mostly just for myself. I was just like, I want to be able to sit in a rehearsal and sing cool chords and be surrounded by a sound that makes me feel good. So I got to write an arrangement for the group. I think the big turning point was Love on Top. We had an arrangement of Beyonce's Love on Top that I wrote second semester, where I was basically like, hey guys, like what if we maybe sang kind of loud and like maybe screamed a little bit? And everyone was like, what's happening? And so it was definitely like, it was a mess to begin with, because it was just a style of singing that we had never really approached before. So we didn't blend or probably sound very good at that point, but it was exciting because we were like, here's this huge sound coming from this group of 15 people, I think it was, that we've never made before. And so that song kind of like got everyone's, just like planted the seed in all of the Devils' heads, like, hey, like we could make a sound that's different, at least in the context that we were thinking of. I was very aware of like the a cappella world outside of Vassar, but most of the Devils really were just like comparing us to like groups on campus and to stuff that they'd heard before. Right. So it was just cool. We were making a sound that not many groups on campus were making, this like big, belty sound. And so that kind of, people were willing to at least get on board with that. They're like, okay, like this guy came in and he has a lot of ideas, but like we're making some sort of cool sound. And then going into sophomore year, I was elected music director, and I came in, we actually had a rule in our constitution in the Devils that they had done the ICCA 1 year before. That was it. In 2012, they had done it. And it was really stressful. They like, the choreo was very last minute. They didn't really like have much an idea what they're getting themselves into. And so it was in the Constitution that the Devils will never do the ICCA ever again. And so so sophomore year rolls around, and I was like, what if we got this out of the Constitution and maybe did the ICCA? Just saying. and at first people they were like, absolutely not. Like, it's in our Constitution for a reason. Like, we're going to get really competitive. It's going to make us all so stressed. It's going to be terrible. But me and Hannah, we like put together this whole presentation. We like showed them videos of past group sets, and we're like, look, like, it's not like Glee where like everyone has to come in wearing matching dresses and like sing these like boppy show tunes. Like, every group can approach it in whatever way they want. Look at the way Pitch Slap did it versus the way that the Nor'easters just did it versus the way that the Enharmonics did it. Like, everyone can do it in their own way. We can do it in our own way. And what will be really exciting for us isn't necessarily to like compete, but just to make a set of 3 or 4 songs that we're really proud of, that we can work so hard on and just focus on making something that we're like, this is something that we can all put our names on and be like, I'm so proud of this. So that kind of got people tentatively on board. They were like, okay, well, it could be cool, like, to sing for an audience that all really loves a cappella. That was another thing, because like at Vassar, people like a cappella, they go to see their friends, but at the ICCA you get audiences that are like, I love a cappella, I'm excited by this, and I'm here to cheer it on. And so people like got on board. They're like, as long as we don't care at all what the judges are thinking, like, don't look at their rubric, we're just going to make what we want to make. And so that was a hugely transformative year for us. We entered the ICCA. We started recording our first professional album with TBC, which the group hadn't done before. We entered a songwriting competition. The group was just like really, they had a lot of trust in me and Hannah, which we're really thankful for. That they were just like, you two clearly have a lot of passion ideas, and like they were scary, and like the group at many times had a lot of pushback. They were like, what's happening? Like, you guys are out of control. But they stuck with it, and with each step, it was fulfilling enough that that we kept doing it. So like after our quarterfinal round and we got a taste of, oh, like this music is making an impact on people. People came up to us and were like, your set really moved me. Your set was something that I hadn't seen before. And the group was like, okay, like maybe this was worth all the work, like maybe we'll keep pushing. Yeah. And so it was just kind of like a roller coaster that kind of like just kept tumbling forward. And we were also very, very lucky that we were able to move to finals that first year, which most groups do not get to do at all. Like you have to like work through the ranks. And we were also super lucky that we were featured, for like 30 seconds on Sing It On the Pop TV documentary that was following the show. So even though we were just kind of like, we're like, oh, like the Nor'easters competition in the background, it gave us some sort of visibility for people who could be like, oh, like that was kind of a weird song. Like I'm going to go look that up on YouTube. So I think probably the main reason that anyone knows who we are is just that we kind of like hijacked onto the Nor'easters fame in that show. So we're also super appreciative of that.
Yeah. So I know for me, that was where I first got exposure to you guys, was watching the show and seeing that, you guys had done that, and just hearing, kind of the contrast of your sound to the rest of the groups being featured on the show, whether it's the featured ones or any of the clips or anything. It was just very unlike anything that I'd seen. And I know for me personally, I've watched the Boss and the ICCA set an extreme amount of times. And so
absurd.
So what I'm interested in a little bit is, so that was the first year that you guys had done competition, and to me, you guys kind of came on the scene, for lack of a better term, with like a fully considered and thought out like sound and like a creative vision behind everything. And obviously you and Hannah being at the forefront is a big part of that. But can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know that for competition, it's like that a lot of people are trying to fulfill a thing. So how do you came up with something so fresh and unique?
Yeah, I mean, I think what made our set memorable or unique is we went in being like, we've seen so many sets that are all so cool. We can't pull off like singing a pop jam in the way the SoCals can. Like we can't do jazz the way Pitch Stop can. What can we do that is maybe a little bit different? And me and Hannah were both music and drama double majors. I think she's a music minor. So we both had like a large stake in like the drama world and in theatricality and storytelling. And so we approached our set very much from the beginning for the ICCA and Boss in terms of like, what is a distinct story that we can tell with our music so that it all ties together and says something greater than just song, new pitch, song, which lots of groups do, like trying to connect the songs into some sort of narrative, but we took it really far. So with our ICCA set, I think one of the things that set it apart was the way that we treated Iscariot as kind of a narration that like interwove throughout the set. So we started with this little snippet of Iscariot, went into Cough Cough, then a little bit more of Iscariot, then some of Nothing, then a little more of Iscariot, Time Machine, Iscariot at the end, which kind of gave the piece a sense of cohesion as a set and kind of made it more obvious to the audience that like there's something running through all of these. So whereas another set might totally have the same story, like if you'd just done Cough Cough, Nothing, Time Machine, like the story would still be there, but the audience might not necessarily notice or think to connect the dots. But when we had that narrative running through it of this song, and Iscariot as a song lends itself really well to that, just because the way it kind of segmented into these sections. And so that was something that the feedback we got was a lot of like, oh, like what you did with Iscariot was so cool. Like that was something I hadn't seen before. And I think that also, having that there kind of like opened people up emotionally, just because there was this one, like one soloist or one song that was tying everything together. So people were, I think, more like open to accepting the emotion of the other songs. So they were like, I have something that I can rely on, something that can connect me, I kind of like in to this set. And then another huge thing that set us apart in that competition was absolutely doing an original song, which was a terrifying choice. I remember messaging Shams in like November or something, and I was like, because I'd met him in an arranging workshop through TVC, one of their next level workshops, which was so cool. It was a workshop with him and Ben Bram, and I learned so much from both of them and from the other arrangers there. And so I messaged Shams because I really looked up to him, and I was like, hey, like, do groups ever do original songs in their sets? And like, do you think we should do it? He was like, I mean, like, yeah, groups have done it, but like, if you're going to do it, it has to be real f***ing good. because like if you're gonna do original song and it's gonna be kind of floppy sounding, like it's just gonna expose your group in a way that you don't want to be exposed, and it's gonna kind of sink the ship. But we were lucky enough that we had Hannah, who is kind of a musical prodigy, and she can just sit down and write songs of so many different styles with really unique lyrics and really like catchy hooks. She's so talented. So we sat down, we were like, we know what spot in the story we want this to fill. We know that Cough Cough, the set was kind of about addiction, either to a person or a thing, and so Cough Cough was about spiraling out of control with this addiction. The middle song, which we wanted to be an original, we knew was going to be some huge power ballad, and it had to be about being at that most sunken place of feeling like you're stuck there. And Time Machine was about rising out of it and looking back on it. And so we knew exactly what narrative space it had to fill. So we knew the lyrics had to be something about, like having nothing, about being lost, about whatever. And we knew who was going to solo it. We knew that Na would totally crush a power ballad, and she could like belt whatever through the roof. So we had these constrictions of knowing how long it had to be, knowing what it had to be about, knowing who was soloing it. And so that allowed us to write something, I think, really, really memorable, that if we had just been like, let's write an original song, it might not have landed as well. But because we knew so clearly what it had to fill, we were able to write a ballad that told exactly the story that set was telling at that point. And so I think that's something that, and also like Na belted really high, and that was impressive. So everyone was like, wow. That's also a funny story that Na sings this high note after the Bridge of Nothing, where she came into rehearsal one day and we'd kind of been like, hey, like, so this last chorus, like you'll hit this E flat and you'll hold it out. And then after that, just kind of like do something like riff maybe. And I was like, okay, like I don't really, I'll think about it. And she came back to rehearsal the next day. She was like, I was in the shower, I came up with something, we'll see if it works. And we're like, okay. And up to this point, Na had been kind of tentative to like full on belt just because she didn't want to hurt herself or like, didn't want to like not blend in the group. So we were like, oh, like she'll do some sort of like riff down, it'll be great. And she just out of the blue just blasts. She's like, she hits the U flat and then just goes right back up to the G flat. And we were all just like, what is happening? It was incredible. We all just like stopped singing and we were like, oh my God. And that became such a like high point of the whole set, was that moment that Na just kind of like walked in with and totally nailed. So that was another thing that made the set, I think, memorable and stand out.
So just to take a step back, I'm just curious to see if you have a specific arranging process or if there are a certain approach that you take to arrangements in terms of if it's more theory-based or more emotional-based and how that works for you.
Ooh, girl. Okay, here we go. So I wish that I had more theoretical approach, but I absolutely do not. And Hannah was saying this in her interview too, that like we did a bunch of theory classes at Vassar and we were like, this is fun, there's all these rules, I forget everything, and the ones I remember I don't care about. So there's obviously the theory of like of voicing, so you obviously don't want like muddy, like thirds in the low bass, but other than that, I approach almost every arrangement very much from a sense of storytelling and a balance of groove and moments. And this is something that the storytelling was very much something that I learned from Shams in that next level vocal company workshop, and groove and moments was something that Ben Bram went on a lot about. So depending on the song, especially the songs for these sets, for the ICCA set, the Boss set, some of the bigger songs on the album, I definitely approached it in terms of like very, very dramatic storytelling, and like sometimes I'll like write the lyrics out in a Microsoft Word document, and I'll be like, what are each of these lyrics? What is the core of what they're trying to say? What is the soloist expressing? Where could it be coming from in this instance? Finding the emotional peak, finding where it could be a little bit more exposed, and then kind of crafting the song around that. So if you look at, it kind of falls into a pattern of like, most of the songs have some sort of intro that sets up, like, so you're not starting right off the bat, giving some sort of intro to like set the mood, the storytelling space of what's happening, introducing some motifs maybe, and then the verse kind of having a little bit of a chiller vibe so that the solo can really come through and set up the story. The first chorus almost always pulls it back, because if you have three choruses that are huge right in a row, it loses a lot of impact.
Right.
So we often do the like build, pull it back for the first chorus thing, which hasn't gotten old yet. I'm sure it will, but hasn't yet. and just kind of finding, so like I said, groove versus moments. So there's some parts where you get into a verse and you just want to like get some cool rhythms going that are really, really memorable and really fun to sing, and you just let that sit for a while, and the bass and perk is really locking in, and the audience just gets to like groove out and relax and be like, nothing, I don't have to like focus my ears so intently. There's not a crazy amount of stuff happening. I can recognize the pattern and chill with it. And then contrasting that with moments where it's groove and then suddenly everything cuts out, or a chord just hangs, or there's a cascade into a trio belting thing, something that's a moment that people will remember, because it's really hard, I think, for a set to stand out, or for any song a cappella to stand out, because so much of what makes pop songs so awesome is like the groove, the like instrumental, like ooh, like this slap bass with this drum is really cool, and you have more limited textures when you're with voices. You have voices, you have perk, so really focusing on moments that the audience will walk away being like, wow, like when so-and-so belted that high note and then everything cut out and then slammed back, that gave me chills. Or like that really dissonant chord that just hung in the air there, that was wow. That key change, whatever. So finding moments for things like that. So that's kind of the like overall songscape, is just that balance of groove and moments. And when it comes to making an arrangement really pop, something that I think both Shams and Ben talked about that just really, really stuck with me was this idea of motifs of things, and they're in pop music all the time. So for instance, it's like, in Sorry by Justin Bieber, that like ooh, ooh, repeated so many times throughout the song, and that comes out and you're instantly like, oh, that part, this song, it's an earworm that sticks in your head. And so in most arrangements that I do, I try and pick at least one or two motifs that are going to stand out and catch the audience's ear, and be something that kind of ties it all together, because we don't have instruments, we just have voices. So you want to still, people are used to hearing pop and hearing these motifs, so you want to give it to them in an a cappella arrangement too. So you introduce it in the intro, and maybe it's something like in Blood I Bled, we start with this, if I, because one of the lyric of the song is if I was, if I am, etc. So we start that there, and then what's really cool with motifs is once the audience can recognize this motif, you have the ability to modify it and to kind of warp it. So it starts off, if I, and the altos have it, and then the next time we see it, the tenors have it, so there's a different texture to it. And then when we get into the build-up section, we kind of stack. So if I was, if I am, they layer on top of each other. And then in the final, the outro part, we have that key change. Then we have a tenor and an alto sustaining it. If I was, if I am. So you take this motif and you do a bunch of different things with it. So the audience is like, oh, I recognize that. Ooh, something new is happening. The arrangement's changing. And even if they can't necessarily latch on to all of the musical ideas that are happening, they can find that motif, and that can give them an emotional core to the song, to be like, this is changing, this is developing throughout the song. That's so cool. So you can make it longer, you can make it shorter, you can add new notes to it, So that's motivic writing is something, it comes from like Wagner and, like leitmotifs in opera, but it makes for really cool arranging because it's fun to sing and it's recognizable for the audience. And sometimes motifs can kind of run throughout songs, they can run throughout sets. We honestly have motifs that run through our whole album. We have the coming alive, happening now is a recognizable motif that comes in. It's introduced in Cough Cough, and then it's in Iscariot, it's in the end of Alive. It's something that the audience can be like, ooh, that. And there's also some accidental motifs. Do you guys know the Justin Bieber song? I'm talking a lot about Bieber. What do you mean when the synth kind of has that boom 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 is one of the like bouncy rhythm things in What Do You Mean? And I guess when I was arranging our boss set, it was just like that had just come out and it was stuck in my ear and I didn't realize I was doing it, but I put a bunch of the upper voices in unison just going ooh in one of the songs. And then in Privacy it came out, it was like, no, what I mean. And then it also appeared in Runnin, and then it also, in one of our songs this year, Keep Lying was like the main motif. And so it's kind of fun to like give the audience, or give really devoted listeners like little like Easter eggs where it's like, oh, and then the group has fun singing because they're like, oh, Matt, like again, really? And I'm like, hey guys. but that can also be fun to, to connect through an album, to connect motifs as well.
Totally. And I think Devils and I feel like Shams' work are both master classes in motivic writing. Like when I saw your guys' boss set live, and you guys hit the Iscariot thing at the end of Alive, like my mind just like my face melted, and like it was so cool because like it kind of serves, in my mind anyway, as somebody who's like been in bands a lot, it's kind of like that's like your distortion pedal that you like, you know, like from your favorite guitar player or something like that, like a signature sound that really like sticks with it. So anyway, so you were talking a little bit about Coming Alive, your newest album, which is fantastic. And so we were wondering if we could kind of run through Runnin, one of the arrangements off of the album, and kind of just get a breakdown on that, because you clearly have an ear that considers every single section, and really I think it speaks to that kind of groove and moments thing that we were talking about earlier.
Totally. So this arrangement was actually probably one of the most dramatic, like, arranging exercises that I did in the group. It's really because the Nor'easters had just released their album Rise, which is also incredible, and this song was on the album, so I knew that almost anyone who's going to listen to our album would have listened to their album and heard their killer arrangement of it. So I knew that ours had to be something different. Like we couldn't just kind of like do the song in the way that the original was, or in the way the Nor'easters had done. So I looked at the lyrics, and I was struck by the fact that this chorus, running, running from myself, no more, whatever, that it can kind of be seen in a very like ominous, kind of like depressed light, and can also be very inspiring, very uplifting. And so I took that way too far, and and if I'm being entirely honest, the kind of idea, the little spark behind the song, and this is again something that Shams talked about, was just like, he's like, sometimes you just want to, like, if you want to make a really dramatic arrangement, just like come up with a bizarre storyline that doesn't have to be what the soloists in the end are telling or what the group is thinking about, but like that'll just help you approach the arrangement in a different way. So for Runnin, I was like, there's this woman in an Egyptian tomb about to be sacrificed to the gods by this like crew of like ominous like monk people, and then right as she's about to get like, you know, like killed or whatever, her lover breaks through the ceiling of the sand of the tomb and lifts her out on a rope, and they're like driving through the desert in a jeep into the sunset, and it's like, it's fast and it's exciting and uplifting. So that,
I'm gonna picture this every time I listen to
I know,
the song.
I already thought that's what
I
it was
shouldn't,
about, so it's weird that you're saying that.
I shouldn't have said anything, because now people are just gonna listen to it and be like, what the heck? So that kind of set up the arrangement in a really cool way to let the first half really explore moments, all these just like dramatic, ominous moments, and the second half to be much more groove focused. So the song starts, and I was like, this just needs to have a slam, huge start. So we swell in, and then we hit a chord that's basically every note in the scale, I think minus the six of this minor scale. It's like, it's so many notes, everyone's on their own note, just like screaming forte. Get that really ominous, dramatic texture going, and then it goes to this hanging unison over which we start to build some of these motifs. So we have the run, which is a motif that runs throughout this whole song, and that I actually took from Time Machine. If I had a time machine, I'd go back, and I'd tell me run, is the chorus of Time Machine. And so I was tired, and I was like, I want a motif for this song. We say the word run in Time Machine. I'm just going to plop it into this. Like, kind of extra, but it's a fun motif. So, and it's fun to sing. So we insert that, and then we also introduce, here's the Bieber thing. So Na sings, run. Then Hannah responds, which is that, so we set up these two motifs in the beginning of the song. The run thing kind of grows. We build to a moment, and then we pull it back again. So it swells, and then the basses come in. And there's this open fifth, again, very ominous. And we hold these pads. At the beginning, I wanted Na's solo to really get a chance to stand out, so we have these pads while Na kind of just like gives on the solo. It's very rubato. She does her thing.
Nothing else matters now, you're not here. So where are you? I'm calling you. Missing you.
And then at the phrase, where else can I go? That kind of stood out to me as like a plea, as something that was popping out of the texture. And so we hit this sudden forte, where else can I go? And the whole group comes in with this like full block chord. We pull it back again. Hannah has a little run motif that's now very light and airy because we've been confident, and now we're back to this place of kind of confusion and despair.
Where else can I go? Where else can I go? Chasing you.
So it builds back to these hums, and then we build into this chorus where I kind of pictured like all the like terrifying monks like coming, encroaching on the soloist bit by bit. So we build this how do you even call it? Like a reverse waterfall, running. Build up voice by voice, which is a very Whitaker-esque build there, and then we get the chorus, which has these triads with other triads stacked on top of them. So we get an A major triad, and then, or I guess we took it a half step down. So A flat major triad, and then B flat major stacks on top of it. So one group belts out Runnin, the other group stacks right on top with no one changing notes. So you get this crazy, crazy cluster, and that happens again in the second half of the chorus. So it really gets this crunchy, ominous, and everyone's just basically like screaming at this point. So it's so dramatic, and again, like not at all like any other arrangement of the song, because like why would someone want to do this? And the other soloist, Joe, kind of harmonizes with Na to get this like togetherness there, to give a hint of this salvation, you know, that's coming later in the song. And then Na finally builds up to this held high note.
Together we can win it all. If I lose myself, I lose it all. So I ain't
And then all of a sudden the perk comes in, and it feels to me like a train running or something, and it's suddenly energetic. And then we have a tool that we often use, me and Hannah, which is just kind of like everyone repeating their own kind of very rhythmic gesture and just stacking them up until it's this sort of cacophonous overlapping sound. It happens at the beginning of Cough Cough, the beginning of Alive, and here you get this running. All these things stack up. And then it slams back in, and now we finally get a groove. We finally get something where the audience can be like, oh, can sit back a little bit. And so the song grooves and has these smooth pads as Joe comes in with the solo. We like let that groove sit for a while until we get another moment where Joe sings "Every voice that cried inside my head." I was like, all right, we let them sit with the groove for long enough. We get this huge whoa. There's another moment that pops out of the texture, and then lets it sit back again to let the audience have a moment and then relax again.
Every voice that cries inside my head forever drives, I drown the lines.
And then we get some call and response lyrics. Where else can I go? Where can I go? Giving the backs some really singable singable lines that they can get very emotional with. And then we get into the chorus, where I wanted it to have this feeling of just like this moving energy. So instead of having everyone moving on the beat, running, 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 and moving on that like half or the full beat, I could set this like offset, running, running, running. So it's this 3 against 4 that kind of just like gives it this momentum that kind of pushes forward as it rises in voicing until this held running, run, release, and then again running, running. The whole second section of the song is about just like building momentum and then release, build momentum and then release. And then we get to the end of the song, and I was like, the song doesn't really have... the original song just kind of ends, if I lose myself, I lose it all. And it kind of just, it fades out there. And I was like, that totally works for the original song and for other interpretations. But this crazy, like, dramatic beginning into this uplifting ending needs a really uplifting ending. So we kind of added a little bit of a lyric. If I lose myself, I lose it all. So I ain't running. It's kind of this firm statement at the end of the song. I ain't running. And the two of them just do these harmonies while everyone just belts these huge long pads. So instead of this running, it's now more confident and relaxed. It's just the gesture here is held notes, and then voice by voice we get this whoa, and another voice whoa. These falling lines that give it this really sweeping, almost film score sort of feel as they're driving off into the sunset. You know.
If I lose myself, I lose it all. So I ain't running. Whoa. I ain't running. Whoa.
The very end of the song, I was like, it needs to have some sort of crazy lift at the end so we can get this happy ending for this otherwise horrifically dramatic song. And so it modulates at the very end to that run-in and then this hum at the end, just sort of Lion King is what the Devils said when I presented to them. They were like, this is sounds like the Lion King, and I was like, I'm not against it, you know, Lion King's great. So that was kind of just like the idea behind the drama of the song. And then to go a little bit more in depth about how I go about writing the individual lines, something that Hannah talked a lot about, that's something that we developed together as we were arranging for the group, is really writing for individual voices. So if you look at the score, there's so many parts where people's, it's like, you know, like Mercy, and then like their line goes down to this part, and then they jump up to the top part, and then they sing this pad, because everyone's voice has things that they can really nail and things that they struggle with. You know, like I can do dynamics really well, but like if you give me a sustained note, like anything above baritone, like I'll start cracking everywhere. So so you really give something to everyone that allows them to sing what they're really good at singing. So whoever's really good at singing high notes, they'll be posting these high notes throughout the last chorus. If someone's really good at shaping a rhythm part, you give them that. And so going through the score, you take everyone's voice and you put them in the spot where their voice can really ring out. Because, also like everyone's break sits in a different spot. So we spend time at the beginning of rehearsal, at the beginning of the year, just like figuring out like where everyone's voice breaks, where they can belt, where they can mix, so that you're never wasting anyone's voice. Because there have definitely been arrangements that I've sung where I have to flip into head voice while everyone else is belting and you can't hear me. Like I'm doing no good. Or like there's a rhythm happening, but it's so low in someone's voice that it gets buried because they can't really resonate there. So every part is really in the range, in the style that each person's voice will really, really thrive in. And I also try to choose syllables and lines that are really singable. So obviously like din and do are staples of a cappella that will probably never go out of style. Like sometimes you just need a percussive attack to a note to like get a really cool arpeggio or something. But in general, the style that I've gravitated towards is much less syllabic, is much less like getting for the like chicka-cha-ching, because we're never going to sound like a guitar. And like we're humans, and if the audience hears you trying to emulate an instrument to some extent, they're always going to have subconsciously, even if not at the forefront, they're going to know like this isn't the actual instrument, this isn't the sound that they're trying to emulate. And so rather than that, I lean towards lines that sound very vocal, that are the kind of things that you'd hear in the background of a pop song. So like, in Bieber going, ooh. So things like oohs, woes, heys, ahs, that always sound vocal. So for instance, I just was writing an arrangement for Hyannis Sound where I wanted this really rhythmic to happen. It's Madonna's Like a Prayer, like whatever. So as opposed to doing like ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da and trying to get like a trumpety sound, that's fun, but I think it sticks much more with the audience and sounds so much more vocal and exciting and memorable if it's like oh, because that's something that like you'd hear that in the back of a Beyonce song or whatever. And it also, I think, when you write lines that are in a specifically vocal style, your singers will sing them more emotionally, will sing them with more feeling. So whereas it might be like ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da-da, people might get lazy with that. But you have to work less hard as a music director, as an arranger. It's like because people know how to sing that because they've heard stuff like that so many times. So when you write like a melodic, like ooh line instead of just like a whole note, ooh, the whole note, people might get a little bit stuck, might get a little bit lazy holding that whole note. But if it has a little bit more momentum to it, a little bit more motion, they'll automatically sing it more emotionally. And so throughout Runnin, there's lines that sound very vocal, that are meant to be sung by a voice that an instrument couldn't do as well as a voice could. And that's what I think makes the arrangement really stand out.
So it seems to me like a good part of your music directing is kind of done in your arrangement to some degree. Like you're kind of setting your group up to succeed, right? And so, you directed the high school group that you created, you directed the Devils. Are you directing Hyannis currently?
No. So I'm currently just one of the dudes, and our music director is Jared Gravely, just graduated from UConn. Okay. He's cool. Incredible. Yeah.
Well, at least for the Devils and for your high school group, like you're the director, and I think as I directed for a couple years in college, and I think that it's one of the most unsung like jobs of like a cappella. Like it's I think it's kind of shaping the instruments a little bit, which is really tough, and it's hard to do well. So what is your approach to directing and doing it most effectively?
That's a very good question. It's absolutely one of the most unsung jobs in a group, because it's so much work goes into music directing. So if you're out there listening to this, please go thank your music director for all the hard work that they're putting in. And if you're a music director, know that I thank you, because you're doing a whole lot of work and probably not getting very much thanks for it. But I think like you were saying, one of the major beliefs that I have as a music director is that a good arrangement and a smartly arranged arrangement will do a lot of the music directing for you. So like I was saying, writing lines that are really singable, that are in a good part of someone's voice, where the dynamic, where the dynamic will write itself. So like if you want it to go from being huge to being small, having the ah become an ooh, because it naturally won't resonate as loud. Or if you want people to sing things emotionally, writing them parts that can be sung emotionally is a lot of it. But then the actual, like, you do have to get down in rehearsal and make magic happen. And so something that we talked a lot about in the Devils was what I call microdynamics. So when you look at a song, there's obviously the macrodynamics, the big dynamic choices that are like, this chorus is big, the verse is mezzo forte, we get the piano bridge into swelling into the last fortissimo chorus. And those are the macrodynamics, the big overall shape of the song. But what makes things sound, I think, really, really emotional and really captivating in background parts and in a solo, but especially in background parts, in pads and sustained lines, is what I call microdynamics. So swelling on almost every note sometimes, or on any, like sustained note. So for instance, take a phrase that's like, ooh, that's like fine. If you give it some ooh, so you give it a little bit of swell on each one, and already that line is so much more interesting to listen to. And so anytime, there's like a cutout in arrangement and we are like 1, 2, ah, if you make that 1, 2, ah, ooh, my voice is so bad. Things like that. So we would go through our arrangements and we'd put so many minute dynamic choices in and really just practice over and over again. Because if you do it once and lock it in, that's not enough. You have to do it like 5 or 6 times for it to become muscle memory. And that's when music directors get frustrated, is when they do it once or twice and they come back and they're like, guys, you forgot. And it's like, okay, yes, people forgot, but also like you as a music director need to give them more opportunities for their body to get accustomed to it, for them to not have to think about it and just do it. So we would run like these swells over and over and over again, and make sure that anytime we're holding, like a whole note pad, it can never just be ooh, because they'll sound bored singing it, the audience will get that. So it has to be ooh, giving it that motion for each note. And sometimes there are moments where you don't want that because it can be distracting or whatever. But in general, that's something we focused a lot on, is putting microdynamics throughout the score so that you can take any arrangement, really. You could take the simplest arrangement where it's just all whole notes or I don't know. And you can make that really exciting just by adding in really minute dynamic choices. So that was a lot of what we spent rehearsals on, as well as finding the exact right way to sing a particular phrase. So not just locking in the tuning and the balance and blend, etc., but like pulling back for one phrase that you want to be particularly breathy. Like in a live, we'd always focus on when the solo cuts out and goes, and it was mine. We went into it and we sang it, we're like, and it was mine, which is fine. But if you add some breath onto it, and it was mine, it's so much more mysterious and exciting. So we would go phrase by phrase and just break down, like, we want some breath here, we want to really attack the glottal here, and just really make choices on every single background part, so that if the audience kind of spaces out from the solo and turns their ear to the background parts, that each background part is being shaped as acutely and as dynamically as the solo is. And so we would do exercises sometimes in rehearsal to try to remind ourselves to sing the backs like they're a solo. So sometimes we would go around the circle and we'd take the verse of a song and each person would just sing their back part as a solo one by one. And you'd be like, oh, like, Sarah's doing such a cool thing there. Like, we should listen to that. That's really cool. And Sarah would remember, like, oh, I should sing this, as if people are listening. Or we would split up into pairs and run through the song, and we'd have each person, like we'd do 2 runs, and one time half the group would sing to their partner, and then we'd switch partners and they'd sing back to their partner, and then each person would give feedback, like, oh, you sing that really expressively, like this could have a little more dynamic, this could have some more breath in it. And it being kind of put on the spot a little bit reminds people who are singing in the background that they still have to be singing as expressively as the soloist is. And it's really hard when you're running through a set to keep that in mind. But once you get it more habituated and once you start to have fun with it, it absolutely brings things to life. And I'm definitely all for, as a music director, like using exercises and warm-ups especially to like get people in the right headspace, because you can go over everything in as much as you want, but doing some sort of like out of the box exercise to really like lock something in, I think can make it stick much better. So if you work on microdynamics in your warm-ups, you work on like as a warm-up instead of just ma, if you work these things, if you really want people to work on being breathy, working that into a warm-up that's focused on that. If you want people to really like get their syncopations down, doing warm-up with that, because I think it warm-ups, it's so easy to just be like, we're warming up our voices, yeah, but that time can be used both to get the group prepared to sing the type of arranging that you're going to be doing, as well as to be prepared to be in the same mental space as each other. So I try to never, and it's really hard to do this, and I would fall into doing the same things, but trying not to repeat warm-ups in the exact same way. So even if you're just chanting like ma, being like ma, or putting it in minor, or doing a different syllable, so that people can't go on autopilot, so they can just they can be like, oh crap, like he's doing something new, I have to listen. And then they're forgetting about their day, they're starting to focus in on rehearsal and get ready for singing together, so that you don't have to work as hard to get people to focus, because they're like, oh crap, this warm-up's a little bit different, I have to turn my brain on. Because when people do the same warm-ups, their brains kind of turn off. It's just how we work. Yeah.
So something that I'd imagine would be sort of a challenge for most music directors is that you're working with or running a group that has roughly 15 to 20 people in it, and that's a lot of people to direct, and a lot of people who probably have ideas about what could happen at a certain point. So could you kind of just speak to the aspect of collaboration in groups? Because I know at least in Trebs, people would have different ideas and kind of run them by the director and navigate that. So in your experience in the Devils, how did you kind of navigate group suggestions and see if they would work, or be like, okay, this is my point as a director to make a decision and go this way?
Very good question. In general, I, as a music director, am always hoping that people will give suggestions and will be invested in the music, because if they're like, oh, what if this were this way, that means that they're engaged in the music and they're listening to the music and trying to make it better altogether. So an ideal rehearsal for me would be to finish a song and be like, all right, does everyone have any thoughts on what we could do better on shaping that we missed, or ways that we can make this tighter? And in an ideal world, the group does it themselves. People raise their hand, they shout out this could happen here, this, we forgot to do this here, because the more that it comes from one person, the more distracted people get, the more annoyed they get at the music director is telling me what to do again and again and again, and it can kind of create that power dynamic, that tension. But if it comes from everyone, I think they feel more valued in rehearsals, so they're more likely to be focused, because they're like, oh, my ideas are heard. They actually are making a difference in the music. And so I found that in general, I think because of the way that I arrange, people would kind of know that I had a really specific idea for how the music should sound. So sometimes I'd be like, does anyone have any thoughts? And it would just be kind of silent, because they'd be like, I know that Matt has ideas at the wazoo of what should happen. But I was always pushing to be like, hey, anyone, please, shout out your suggestions. And that's not what every group runs into. Some groups have many people who are like, I think it should be this way, and they kind of clash. And that's not really the experience that I had in the Devils. We had very few moments where people were like, I totally disagree with the direction we're taking this, we should take it in a new direction. It was mostly me just trying to get people excited about shaping the music together, because once we built a similar vocabulary of we as a group are into microdynamics, we're into phrasing things with our pop breathy phrasing, once we all coming from the same place of what the end goal is, then people can kind of use that to be like, oh, we can push our microdynamics here further once we're building off the same language and the same vocabulary.
So as a quick follow-up to what you're just saying, so that's kind of, I feel like, you're speaking to establishing culture and kind of things on literally the micro level. For you, again, you and Hannah, I feel like, had very specific ideas of the things that you wanted to execute musically and creatively. So I guess I was just wondering how you work as a director worked as a director to have your members genuinely engage in the vision that you have, so that it doesn't feel like it's something that they're put on. They're not like, I'm doing Matt's thing, but I'm doing my thing that is what Matt wants. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. I think, to be frank, at the beginning, my sophomore year when I started, it was a little bit that dynamic. It did kind of feel to many members of the group oh, this is Matt and Hannah's ideas that they're just kind of forcing on us. Why are we doing this? What's happening? And it took kind of getting the response of going to that first quarterfinal and hearing the audience be like, oh, this was powerful, this was different, and seeing the impact that we made on people, for people to be like, oh, all this work and all these really strong ideas that they have are working towards something that that like can benefit me. Like I can build a connection with this audience. I can build a connection with each other through the music that we're making. And I think like just being transparent about it, being like, oh, like we want to make this set, we want to do this, and here's why. Like we're building this set because we're thinking about, you know, like addiction and like telling the story. And I think that's something we can all connect to, and then having an open floor for people to share ways that the theme might be important to them. Or like we're doing this competition, but like here are our goals. Like what do we want our goals to be as a group? Like do we want to win? Do we want to just like make a set and making sure that we're all on the same page? Like we want to make this set for us, not really care what the judges think. So we kind of come through with ideas like, let's make an album, let's do a set, let's do whatever, and then open up to the group to be like, in what way do we want to do this that we're all on board with? Like we're doing an album, but like do we want to make an album that's like really like avant-garde and like focused on like being a cohesive album? Do we want to make sure everyone gets a solo? Like what is important to us as a group and how we do this new thing that we're doing? And with songs, I think what really got everyone on board with, I mean, also like a lot of the Devils are just, we all care a lot about music, so we were always on board to like make the music tighter because like that's one of the things that drew us to the group, was just making really tight music. Right. But on the other hand, even when we all have that shared knowledge, it would still get hard because like you get into the middle of the semester and everyone has classes and essays and you get to rehearsal at 11 p.m. and everyone's exhausted. And so we know that we're all there to make the music happen, but it could still be really tough to be like, hey, like giving feedback and critique about our singing, and people have to receive that when they've had like a long day. So reminding people that adjustments for singing aren't saying that they're a bad singer. You know, that like it's so personal when someone like critiques your singing, because it's literally how you use to communicate. It's different than when someone critiques your piano playing, I think. So reminding people that like you're not singing badly, you're not singing wrong, because everyone's way of singing is valid for their own way. It's just that like we're working towards this very distinct a cappella sound that's such a weird, specific thing. So if you're doing a certain and like we have to shape it for our group sound, it doesn't mean you're doing a bad thing. You're not singing wrong. You're just singing different than this current a cappella moment is asking for. And so reminding people that like that feedback isn't like you're wrong. It's really just like, let's make this thing together. And another thing that I think made a huge difference in bringing the group together was traveling together, honestly, because we, like I said at the beginning of this, what has turned into a very lengthy interview because I talk a lot, that we weren't as close of a family when we first started out, and what it took to make that happen was like going to TVC together to record and being in that house together for a weekend, going on these road trips to the ICCA. So more than anything, the benefit that we got from the ICCA was that being in those 3-hour-long car rides together, you get to know people on a deeper level, you form inside jokes and like bizarre memories, and having that basis makes it so much easier to work in rehearsals. So like it's so much easier to receive critique and feedback from someone when you shared a funny joke with them the day before, when you got lunch with them and were talking about your day. It's so difficult to receive critique from someone who you don't know or trust very deeply. Honestly, the most beautiful singing experience I've ever had was after we had a workshop at the beginning of this year, I believe, with the Devils, where it was a communication workshop led by a counselor on campus that was just focused on better ways to communicate without kind of like passive aggression or without assuming people's intentions, without assuming that people have malintent when they're talking to you, and like kind of words that can kind of trigger people, and when you use a certain word in a specific way, how that maybe implies something that you didn't mean it to, and to really communicate healthily with one another. And so we were working through this workshop and talking about different ways that we can listen to each other. And at the end of the workshop, we had a performance next day, and I was like, hey guys, like that was amazing. Can we run Through My Heart With You, one of our like choral type songs? And it was, off the bat, it was instantly the most in tune we'd ever been, and we'd sung this song for 4 years, the most blended we'd ever been. The phrasing was gorgeous because we were really, really listening to each other and had just really opened up to each other emotionally about what being in the group meant to us, and about how the best way to communicate with us. And like when we're having a bad day, like we all went around and we're like, when I'm having a bad day, like it's best to like just like ignore me and like not treat me any differently, or it's best to give me a hug, or it's best to just like make a joke so I laugh. Because like when someone comes in rehearsal and is having a bad day, everyone reacts to it differently. So how do you make them feel better? How do you make a space where everyone can feel good and not just let that one person's bad day kind of affect the whole rest of the group and then everyone's having a bad day? And so we talked about all that, And then we ran this song, and it was so stunning, and it was such a like eye-opening moment to me. Where like, of course, when you're listening to each other as people, you'll be listening to each other as musicians, and you'll make amazing things. And so I'm really striving to find new ways to like connect emotionally and connect as people in ways that will translate into the music. So with every song that we do, before we perform it, we sit down, we have the soloist talk through the lyrics, and then we each share words that stood out to us, or a story that reminded us, or a color or something, so we can all know like, oh, like we're opening up a little bit to us as people and what this music means to us, and that always makes the music become sung more emotionally, and it clicks better, and we blend better because we're listening to each other and we're thinking, oh, I know that Emily shared that story, and looking across the circle, and you're like, she's probably thinking of that right now, and that's so moving to me, and I'm thinking of it this way. And so like moving past the music and spending time to really bond together as people, and honestly to like bond as people in settings where there aren't alcohol, because like it's so, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but to bond together outside of party settings where you're like going on a hike together, or you're going on a road trip, or having dinner, so you can really get to know people. It's easy to underestimate what a big difference that will have on the music you make, but I cannot overstate enough what a big difference it can make.
Right.
Love that.
I agree with that. So we are nearing the end of our episode today, and 2 questions that we like to ask our guests are, what trends do you see in acapella that you are excited by currently, and what is on the agenda for Matt Goldstein? What are you doing next? Cool.
What do I see next for acapella that's most exciting? Well, I think that original music is really exciting. As someone who like isn't very good at composing original music, I'm very excited by people who can and who are composing music that really is built for acapella. That's not just like, oh look, they're being a guitar, that like is meant for acapella and shines through acapella. But honestly, I'm most excited right now just by the amount of like young people that are getting excited about singing. These like high school groups, like One Voice is literally the most talented group in the country. They're incredible. Every time I see them sing, I'm just like, how? Why and how? Like JD Frizzell must be a mastermind. So I'm really excited about all the young people that are coming forward with their own ideas and making their own music and forming their own groups, forming 6-person groups and forming groups in different ways. I think, like it's about time that we had like a 30-person a cappella group and these 6-person a cappella groups and a group that's like all women plus one bass and all like genderqueer and like someone was saying how they want to make like a drag queen a cappella group. I'm like, go for it. Like literally, we've
please.
There are niches that can be filled. That because a cappella is relatively new, that I think can be really exciting, and a cappella groups that will kind of cater to different audiences. So I think the Aka Open, honestly, will have some really exciting repercussions in terms of new groups being formed in ways that we haven't seen before, because we're working outside of the restrictions of college or high school groups. So I'm very excited to see what happens with that. It's going to be pretty insane. So currently I am singing on Cape Cod with a group called Hyannis Sound. It's a 10-person all-male a cappella group, and we sing up and down the Cape all summer long, and it's been so much fun. It's basically the exact like opposite of my experience with the Devils, where in the Devils we did like really broody, like dramatic music, and then getting to do like really fun music that's still musically complex in Hyannis Sound is so much fun. And all these guys, it's like 9 of the like most talented guys in a cappella just like coming to the Cape for the summer to sing together. So if any of y'all get a chance to come out to the Cape this summer and are like missing your a cappella fix from school, I would love to see you guys at a show, to have some like true a cappella fans in the show, because we have a bunch of like Cape Codders, but to have some actual a cappella peeps would be so much fun. So if you go to our website, hyannissound.com, we have shows like all over the Cape all summer long, and I've been doing some fun arranging for the group that's kind of like combining the styles of the Devils that I developed there, and this like the kind of like boisterous fun of an all-male group, and it's been really fun to kind of meld those together. So I'm really proud of the stuff that we've been making this summer. And then after that, I don't know, I'm gonna be in the group for 2 years, and then I'm hoping to be a music teacher, like a high school music teacher, and to make a baller high school group that changes the world and does who knows what. And then hopefully on top of that, to get to still work in a cappella as a performer and arranger in a semi-pro group, or in some context, I'd love get to keep singing and to keep arranging. I'm currently doing a lot of commissions for arrangements for groups for like upcoming like So Jam sets or ICCA sets. So if any of y'all wanna hit me up for an arrangement or even just talk about arranging, I'm always excited to like look at arrangements and give feedback or to just like brainstorm ideas. So yeah, I'm hoping to find new ways to collaborate with people, to form new groups, to form new connections, and to kind of forge a new path now that the Devils are doing their own thing. I'm also very excited to see what the Devils go on to do next because we have some really awesome leadership. They're all sophomores, and they're going to be sophomores and one senior who are in charge of the group this next year. So they're going to do some amazing things. I'm really pumped to see it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Matt. To any of the listeners who've made it this far in the episode, thank you. I think it's been a really insightful episode, and we could probably go on for another hour, which this has probably been. But yeah, we'll link to a bunch of things that we talked about in the show notes. We'll leave Matt's contact info if you want to get in touch with him. And we'll see you next week for a new episode of Head Voice.
Woo-hoo. Thank you guys.
That was amazing.
I'm sorry that was so long. Oh my God.
You had it coming. You know you had it coming, my friend, my friend. You know you had it coming, my brother. My brother had it coming, my friend, my friend. You know you had it coming, my brother. My brother had it coming, my friend, my friend. You know you had it coming, my brother. My brother had it coming, my friend, my friend. You know you had it coming, my brother. My brother had it coming, my friend, my friend. You know you had it coming, my brother.
I wonder if